Awesome, brother. Great to see you, brother Jake.
Yeah, you too, Jerome. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thanks for joining. Thanks for being with us today. And you're all the way across the world, so this is awesome just to connect, just to sync up with you here.
Oh, mate, definitely. Yeah, it's warm and quite hot here, summer, and yeah, the other side. Whereabouts are you based?
So I'm actually in Texas, USA.
Yeah,
So it's 5 p.m. Thursday here. So it's yeah, 17 on
yeah.
Thursday. hmm
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm in the future.
Yeah, man, you're in the future. You're in the
It's
future like
Friday.
Marty McFly, brother. You're in the future for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
Oh,
really appreciate you reaching out to me, man. And I love, yeah, your page is awesome. Seeing what you're doing and the people you've had on. I think it was Rue that you had. He lives just a bit north of me,
okay.
like an
He's
hour.
just he's just north of you then?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's such a cool
Yeah, we
guy.
had Rue on the other day. We had Rue, and then that was awesome.
Mm.
That was an awesome build here. So you've met each other then?
Not in person yet, but we've known each other for a while online and we've got mutual in-person friends. I'm really keen to do some in-person with him though, because I just found out it was from you telling me and I thought, oh, and I had a look and he's literally just an hour north.
Yeah. So y'all definitely got to get
Yeah.
together.
Hmm.
Definitely got to get together. That's gonna be awesome. I can't wait to see what you build together, with your
Oh,
skills together and
oh
just
man, there's a lot of people in this area. Nova would be another great one to have on. She's in the area as well, and she does amazing like juice fast coaching, group coaching,
yeah.
and yeah, she's an incredible person. She's the one that got Rue, I think, into this.
He mentioned
He may have mentioned that.
Nova. So
Yeah,
so Nova is a big name out there then. It sounds
yeah,
like
she's a good personal friend of mine, and yeah, and she's friends with Rue. I think really good friends with him, and it's always like a web somehow in Australia because there's not too many of us, but there's there's enough of us to we keep each other uplifted. I think.
beautiful. Beautiful. I love the
Mm.
camaraderie. I love the community, and I love the collaboration vibration out there. It's interesting because when I was talking to Brother Rue, he was saying that, he met up with Nova one day and, out of a group of people, she kind of singled him out or he singled her out, one or the other. But she mentioned to him about humans being frugivores or that, we're supposed to be living on fruits and
Mm.
he was like get out of here, like you're off your chops. He said you're off your chops, like
Yeah,
like get
yeah,
out of here.
yeah.
And but then he couldn't deny that she was glowing.
Mm.
He said her skin was glowing, her aura was glowing, her energy was radiating, it was emanating, it was pulsating, it was glowing. And he was like, wait a minute, like out of all the people I know, she's talking about this frugivore diet, this fruit-based diet, but she's glowing,
Mm.
like what's going on here? So when did you meet up with Nova? Like, how did you and Nova make contact?
Yeah, we followed each other maybe 2 years ago on Instagram, and I I lived 3 hours north on the Sunshine Coast, and her like sister, not biological, but they're literally sisters,
Mhm.
a friend called Jaya, who's also pretty active on Instagram too. She lives up there, and I met her. She just we started chatting, and she's like, "Hey, I'm literally two suburbs over from you." And we literally met up, had Christmas together that year. I'm really close with her family. And then through her, I met Nova, of
Okay.
course. And then, we've got some things we're working on this year that I'm really excited about. That sort of been in the work for a while. And I think in this sort of space, just like with what Rue's doing, Nova's doing, what myself is
Mhm.
doing, is collaborating together is the key because going alone can be really rough, especially coming up against, like, I deal with a lot of people that have been to like medical doctors and doing like really serious cases. So working together can be the best thing. Otherwise, you can get quite stressed out or burnt out.
Right.
And also can be overwhelming if you like say the wrong thing, if because there are other powers that be that don't really
Mhm.
want you going down this direction. But the truth, as you said, is like Rue saw that he may have been like to Nova, "There's no way," but you
Mhm.
can't deny what's in front of you.
Right.
And it's like when I speak to people, they say, "Oh, well, if you don't have protein or you don't have this, you can't be strong." And then they look at me, and then they just sort of stop talking about that because they go, "Well, you're a living example of that." And it's consistent. It's not, it's not a one-off thing. You know, it's not chance. Um, and I think it's growing. People, I think, are sick of trying something and not working. And now, when you give people back their power, they can know and they have the ingredients now of what to do, and it's their responsibility to do that.
Right.
And still, there's a lot of people that don't want to take responsibility, but that's of course up to them if they don't want to do that.
True.
But you're just leading them to water, so to speak. You can't force them to drink. But I think once people taste it, that'll be the motivation for them to go, oh yes, this is where I'll go.
I agree. I agree, brother. And I
Mm,
love the way that you put it. You know, it's like we can't control someone's choices, someone's decisions, someone's actions, you know,
mm,
that people do, I guess, for their own satisfaction, you know, for their own experience, for their own, you know, just reality, you know, with that mentality. Sometimes we have to change, you know, and sometimes to a lot of people it seems strange, you know,
mm.
but it's like we're finding our range, you know, definitely for sure. So
Yeah, I love
you
that.
spoke about, I love this, Jake, because you spoke about going it alone, and sometimes it's difficult to be the lone wolf, you know, or to be the black sheep. I myself,
Mm,
you know, I'm used to being the black sheep in the family, but
yeah.
when it comes to going alone, you know, can you talk about in your journey, like what was your origin story? Were there something that you had to go it alone on before you found this loving and budding community? Like, where did it begin for
Mm. Well, man, I'm glad you asked because I think what I don't want people to misinterpret is you will have to go it alone, pretty much, especially at the beginning,
you?
and that'll be a real test uh, to to like your internal fortitude. I feel
Mm,
to the inner strength that you have, and to not let other people's influence be the guiding factor for you. Let something stronger be the guiding factor, and really, ultimately, that is yourself that's being the guiding factor. Don't let it be anyone else. And what really gave me the strength was when I started studying at Dr. Morse's school. Because being like a practitioner of him now and an avid admirer of him, I've listened to like every single bit of work he has, read his book. I know his teachings in and out, and the success I've had with clients has been amazing. And what started to bring me down is I'd see the success with my clients, and then I wasn't really applying it myself,
mm,
and I'd sort of be kicking myself. And what essentially happened is I was letting the external world, people, environment, social, whatever it may be, affect really what I need to be doing. So ultimately, you have to understand that you might be on your own now doing it, but there are other people, especially in Instagram or a YouTube space, where you see other people doing it alone, but you can feel less alone when you watch videos by Dan McDonald or watch something by Nova or Rue, and you feel that you may be alone physically, but ultimately you guys are essentially going in the same frequency and trajectory upward, out of the stagnation of what humanity is sort of lost in, I feel.
mm,
And I think it takes a big commitment to yourself and honesty of actually realizing that those things don't serve you anymore, and that you have to go it alone initially, and people will start attracting to you. For example, I've been staying at this yoga retreat for the last few months, and I'm not telling anyone to eat fruitarian, eat herbs, eat raw food. I'm just doing my thing. I do talks there, and people gravitate towards it. And then 1 hour and 40 minutes later, after doing a talk, they straight away want to learn more. They want to start on, how can I start on a raw food diet? How can I safely begin to do a fast? How can I do this? You look amazing, blah 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 blah. And that's great. They have an internal excitement. And something that Dr. Moore said is and I love this. He's like, I'm not teaching you anything. I'm just showing you a faculty or an element in you that is just dormant, that has been sort of turned off, and it's just bringing to light that again. So once that sparks in you, and I think most of us that have, and I think Rue, his change was he went from like bodybuilder protein mindset all the way to a shredded fruitarian essentially. And he did it he just went in
mm,
because I think the awakening of people in that regard, if you want to use that phrase, um, I like the way Alan Watts puts it, it's an all or nothing thing. It might happen in degrees, but once you see it, you see it. You can't unsee it. But really, ultimately, what started me on this
Hmm.
was having like a lifetime of uh, quite like passive health problems. But as a child, I nearly died. My appendix ruptured when I was 15 months old, which should have killed me. And then, and having an appendix rupture is at any age is really doesn't really happen. But let alone being an infant, you pretty much have a higher chance of a plane falling out of the sky and killing you than
Jesus.
you know what I mean? Like it's that rare. And so I survived that. And then once I started studying at Dr. Morse's school in my early 20s, I started to discover, wow, this is my lymphatic system, my physical body is really not great.
Hmm.
But I have strong genes, but gosh, like if I don't take care of myself, my teeth started eroding.
Mm.
I had a tooth pulled out. Teeth were eroding from the inside out, and I had pain in my mouth all the time. And
Jesus.
then I knew something had to change. So that was a big motivating factor, was that my physical body was going downhill quite quickly.
Right.
And it hasn't been easy, that's for sure. The emotional, and we can obviously get into this, like the diet or what you need to change may be quite simple, but the how well you can process emotional traumas or things stored in you, like every time you've eaten emotionally, you're going to be suppressing whatever emotion that is with the food in your body.
Hmm.
So that's going to have to come out one way or another.
Right.
I love the way my teacher, Dr. Moore, says, like that which you put off today will be your nightmare tomorrow. And
Jesus.
it's very true. Like, and you experience that. It's like you can do that, but you reap what you sow, cause and effect. It'll come. You have to face it one day,
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow, or in a year, or 5, 10 years, 20 years. Um, so that's essentially it in a nutshell. Was having health problems as a child, and then as a teenager, got feelings like when I was like a teenager, and then in my younger adult life, going vegan, thinking that was all it, eating like all this cooked stuff, vegan junk food, thinking that's like the pinnacle of health. My health just went downhill.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's funny, even during this time, I discovered Dan McDonald and Dr. Morse like 12 years
Mm-hmm.
ago. And I knew what I was hearing was true, but I didn't have it in me yet to really start walking down that path. But I already had the ears to hear, you know what I mean?
Right.
Um, and I think there's people doing that. I've had clients say to me, I watch your videos, I listen to your podcast, I watch Dr. Morse, I watch Dan McDonald, but I'm eating a cheeseburger. And I
Mm.
said, well, at least you're there. You're already there. Like, don't undermine yourself. There'll be people eating cheeseburgers that have no idea. They're the people we need to reach. You're the one that's already there, able to listen to this. So you're already going down that path, and just be
Mm.
patient with yourself and not be hard on yourself when it comes
Right.
to that.
Right. Having grace,
Mm,
compassion, compassion and grace for yourself is
mm,
tremendous. Wow, brother. First of all, brother Jake, I'm so glad that you are still here.
mm,
Like you said, the odds of you being here after going through what you went through at such a young
mm.
age. And how young were you again when you said your appendix ruptured?
Uh, just over 1 year.
Just over one? What?
Mm,
So how does that even, like, for people who don't really understand just the ramifications and
sure.
just like what that implies, like how does that even happen?
Yeah. Okay. So back when I was born in 1997, it was understood that the appendix was just an extra organ that didn't do anything. It's now known that it's a lymph node to your small bowel, and the small bowel is the area where most absorption happens. It's the first part of the digestive tract after your stomach. So when the food goes out of your stomach, it enters the small bowel. So if you're eating acidic foods, um, this lymph node, the appendix, has to filter out excess waste.
Mhm.
So when I was born, you're born genetically with the strength given to you from your mother and father, and that's heavily affected by their diet as well, obviously. And so my lymphatic system was from my mother, and my genetics was split from my mum and dad. Thankfully, I was given incredible genetics. I think if I had weak or medium constitution, I probably would have died from that. But I don't think anything's random, because um, I've always felt not normal in the world. You know, there's something bigger I've been needing to do, and having the teeth decay and these things later on. I see this as a blessing, as that led me to where I am now, to helping people. But in terms of, and that's just a later effect. They all are affect all of these issues are ultimately a very, very, very weak, like a very weak lymphatic system. And that appendix would have been so genetically weak, probably the equivalent of maybe an 80 or 90-year-old human, that it popped. Because typically in this day and age, if you have an appendicitis, they will remove it before it pops. Because if it pops, you get acid waste filling up your digestive tract. So for me, it blew up, and my entire colon got filled with acid waste from in the appendix, and they had to do this crazy surgery to like clean out around the digestive tract, and then stitch it back up. And my body was so weak it couldn't hold the skin together, it would just open back up again. So they had to stitch underneath. So I've got a substantial scar, but it's gotten smaller over the years, and it'd be interesting to see if it'll heal. I am currently on a grape diet, which I will be on for up to 3 months, if not longer, if I can, based on the price of the grapes, just because I want to see how far I can take my physical body and go beyond in terms of emotional growth as well.
Right.
And so this was a major problem, because the skin couldn't hold together. So I had to do all these crazy surgeries continually, all this trauma. And so as I grew up, my fear of hospitals was immense. Even to this day and age, to this day right now, the thought of going there is it already, it's not a place of healing, but it's I have like an emotional memory, an energetic memory of what that was like there. When I was a kid, I'd go into a dentist or somewhere, and my hands would like start sweating profusely, my heart rate would increase,
Right.
all of that. And they did tests on me. They sort of gave up at one point. There was another time when I can't remember what order it was in, but I was in a coma for 7 days, or 8 days, and and then, funnily enough, I didn't come out of the coma, and my mum used a homeopathic remedy called Carbo-Veg, which is known in homeopathy as the corpse reviver. And she was there with her brother, and she put it in my mouth, and I woke up immediately from the coma.
Corpse
Um,
reviver.
that's what it's known as in homeopathy. So anyone that watches this, you just look up Carbo-Veg. Anyone that's a homeopathist would know what it is.
Okay.
And yeah, that's essentially what got me out of the coma.
Whoa.
Um,
Whoa.
yeah, so
And
who
what did you
knows
say?
if
What did you say
mm,
was the reason you went into the coma? Because 7 days, 7 days just gone.
yeah, they none of the things that happened to me, they knew the reason for. They At one point they said I had a short chain fatty acid disorder, which was whatever that means. Then they also found high levels of lead and I think chromium in my body, which they said should not even be, you shouldn't be alive with that. They also, I think I was on steroid therapy, which, now understanding the role of the adrenal glands, they control steroids, they produce steroids, sorry. So I do have quite genetically weak adrenal glands. So at that age, um, I imagine that my adrenal glands were not working at all. And adrenal glands controls breathing, heart rate, peristalsis. That's another thing. I wouldn't go to the bathroom. Like, I wouldn't eliminate feces. My mum had to massage and do these kind of things to get me to eliminate. And I think a lot of trauma, maybe from being in the hospital, and also being a very angry child. Like, as I grew up, I was incredibly aggressive. I nearly killed my brother when I was in this like raging anger spell once, when I was like 8 or 9. And there was a lot of anger, and my mum did a lot of emotional work. I went to a school called a Steiner school. If you heard of Rudolf Steiner, um, yeah. So there's a lot of energetic work with like the soul development of children, and it's really important that that is supported throughout the growth of a human. And my mum did a lot of work in there, and that hands down was, if I had a different parent, I doubt it would be the same. But
Wow. Shout out to your
yeah,
mom. Shout
yeah,
out to your mom, man. What is her name?
Lindsay.
Lindsay. Wow. Jesus. Jesus, brother. As you're speaking, Jake, I'm just like, it's like I get chills because when I hear stories like this, you're a living miracle. You know,
Oh
like
yeah, it definitely feels that way.
you are a living, breathing miracle, brother. You know, like how, I mean, do you even remember right before you went into the coma for 7 days? Like, do you remember right before, like what happened right before, and then when you woke up, do you remember the after, like the before and after?
No, but because I was still so young, I think that happened. I think that happened after the appendix. I don't rupturing. I don't really remember the order exactly right now, but they were in. I think the appendix happened first, and then things were like fine for a while, and then I just started to have like breathing problems where, um, and not being able to go to the toilet,
Yeah,
and then but the body would just do things, and they had no idea. They didn't have any reason. Mum even had to sign a form at one point, for them to not do, because they were like doing tests on me without my mum's consent when she wasn't there.
wow,
Yeah, they
wow,
were doing the system was so either I do have respect for good medical doctors, but I also just based on my own experience with them, even though I don't remember it, in a way I do because when I think about it, it's almost like I have a memory somewhere,
yeah,
that may not, and that I imagine that through extensive fasting and by eating a lighter diet and not, I feel that I'll be able to regain, um, to what that was like because I know people that have talked about they have a memory from when they were going through the birth
right,
canal,
right,
or before when they were actually in the womb, the warmth, that's very, that's not an unheard of thing.
mm,
And so, and then being angry and I think I was 6 or 5, um, you know, I was on the trampoline or something and I was like playing around on the trampoline and I said to my mum, "Oh, like, I'm really happy to be
mm,
here." And she said, "Oh, that's great. Like it's a lovely day or it's whatever it was," thinking that I was referring to like just being on the trampoline and
mm,
playing. And then I replied with, "No, I'm happy to be alive. Like be here. I'm happy to be on this planet." Something like that. Like I'm happy to be on this planet or something.
mhm,
And coming from like a child, she of course was like, "What?" But there's always felt like I've always gravitated towards people that need help or
mm,
to people that are suffering, or friends at school were often like the odd ones out who didn't have as many friends and they're always more interesting, and all the like the popular circles. I never wanted to go down those, the dipping into partying and all those things was very, very, very short lived. Like
right,
I'm I'm in my late 20s now, going into my 30s,
mm,
and I pretty much don't do what other people do, because there's something else to be done.
mm,
And there is really no other time than right now. And I have friends and around me that are still going down these other paths, and they see how I'm living, and they always come back and they go, "Oh, what can I do to get well or to feel better?" And I'll just say, "Come around, let's eat some fruit, let's eat some raw food, let's go play some music, whatever." And because these other energies do pull you, but
mm,
I feel that some of us are. It took me a while to reconcile with this, but that there is something bigger to be done here that I feel that I'm meant to be doing, and I am doing that.
mhm.
And
You did.
and just seeing, I just got a message from a client, 4 or 5 days ago.
Mhm,
Um, he was 75 years old from New
mm,
Zealand. This will be going up soon as well, so this is the first time I'm talking about it.
mhm,
But he couldn't really walk properly, couldn't remember anything, struggled putting on weight, went on a program with me, herbs, and now I just heard from him and his wife, that he's now put on 10 kilos of new tissue with a fruit diet.
mm.
He can now walk upstairs normally, and he still has forget some things, but his memory is night and day better. The difference is a night and day difference. And it's hearing these kind of things that is a reminder to why why I'm doing this and why there is nothing else for me to
Yeah.
do.
Yes,
um,
yes. I love this, brother. Just, hearing your passion, hearing your energy, your enthusiasm for your path,
mm,
just for this journey, for your learning, and then also just, to be able to understand that how you said in the beginning, how you still feel like, things have a reason, like everything has a
mm,
reason. It's tough because, it would be hard if I'm thinking of myself, putting myself in your shoes, like to be able to still find gratitude, to be able to still find the silver lining, and to just understand, you know what? I'm thankful that things happened the way they did because, now I have this path, now I have this mission, now I have this meaning, now I have this fulfillment, now I have this freedom, now I have this understanding.
Mm,
And, with people, other people, like you said, who aren't really demanding, that don't have the understanding, that are kind of, like, hey, just life is just, pleasure and, party and this and that. And you're
mm,
like, hey, I don't do what other people do because I know there's something more to be done. You know,
mm,
it's so
mm,
simple what you said, but it's so profound.
mm,
It's
mm.
like, I know there's something else to be done.
Yeah.
So,
And it's not
man.
that. Yeah, and what you just said remind me of about the pleasure seeking. It's a quote that Dan McDonald came up with, and I've
Mhm,
got this in my notes on my phone. I've got all these great lines, ones that I've thought of.
mhm,
I've some that I've thought of during fasting and spending time alone, and from Dan Morse, Alan Watts, whomever.
mhm,
Rumi is one of my favorites as well. Um, is he's like pleasure is the antithesis of joy,
mhm,
and it is so true because I just came back from a time away up north, and there was a big music festival, and we went to go as a group of volunteers, and I was open to it. I was all in the back of my mind. I had a feeling I knew it was going to be like, and when I went there, there's just a fried food, uh, like wall to wall people,
mhm,
people just doing drugs everywhere and drinking, and it's meant to be like a folk festival, like,
mhm,
and the energy there, man, is not conducive of living well in any way.
mhm,
And we set up the camping area. I was there with my brother and some other friends,
mhm,
and every fiber of my being was saying, "Leave,
mhm,
go into nature. You have a X amount of time off. I want to be at waterfalls and the beach. Being here is not it." And literally 2 days in, I just left, and they were like quite annoyed, like, "Oh, you're not being open to something new," and really projecting their own insecurity onto me. Um, and I just said maybe we have different ideas of what fun is, and that fun is not what I'm seeking. I'm not seeking pleasure anymore. You can't. I would never trade the feeling of. Hey, Rebecca, she joined. Nice. Um, she's another detox specialist from Morse School. She's amazing. I'll never trade. I'll never trade the feeling of peace that you get in nature and the contentment with something fun.
mhm,
Because fun is just a meter that goes up and then drops.
mhm,
And really, that ultimately you can have the most amount of fun and enjoyment by being in complete contentment. And people don't really realize that I think there were some people there that just didn't get that, and that was fine. And I didn't try and chat. I said, "You guys do what you want to do. You guys have a great time, but I'm going to be somewhere else. I'll see you when we're done, when we're back down at the community."
right.
But it's a good example there of if you didn't have that clarity in
Mhm,
you, you probably easily would have been swayed. And once upon a time, I would have done that.
right.
But I think it's a good test of, you know, if that means I go to the waterfall alone, I'll go to the waterfall
Mhm,
alone. But I happen to be with my girlfriend and another friend who also didn't want to be there,
okay.
and they completely aligned the same way. They're very sensitive people, and just having these other energies around, you feel it. It's like a dark, almost like soul sucking feeling,
Mhm,
but it's under the illusion of something alternative. I feel,
mhm,
and it's just we should be careful. Really, what I want to conclude with here is be careful that there will be things that will come up and test. They'll test your fortitude. It'll test your grit
mhm,
for the path that you're going on, like a trial essentially.
right,
And you'll go through it, and ultimately, it's an internal trial. At the end of the day, it's an internal thing.
right.
And these sort of scenarios bring that up, and you do you overcome it? Do you succumb? If you succumb, okay, and then you learn and you move forward. Succumbing isn't a bad thing, it's a
Mhm,
lesson. You can, okay, I didn't do what my heart was telling me to
mhm,
do, but I'm now going to do that. The same way you might be over Christmas with family and friends, and they're indulging in all of this
mhm,
food, and you don't want to be doing that. You can still be there and enjoy their company, that maybe, and I've done this plenty of times, been there with them, eaten the food, and then felt terrible. And I don't really want to be here. I don't want to be around this sort of energy. But you know, you can, yeah, you can change that over time. And I feel that um, once you, as I said before in part one, once you become aware of these other realities, if you will, within yourself, you can't unknow them. So it's
Right.
just ultimately about aligning yourself with them opposed to ignoring them. Because I feel once you know, and you don't, and once you know something, if you ignore them, you suffer more.
Right.
If you do something out of ignorance, you're not really suffering. But once you know and you do the opposite, you're going to suffer a great
For
deal.
sure.
And I've definitely been there.
For sure. For sure. You've been on the other side, and
Mm,
just having that discernment. For sure. It's tremendous. When you're talking about just that quote, and that was a really good quotation when you mean like the antithesis of pleasure is joy, like joy and
mm,
pleasure on the balancing beam,
mm.
that it's the opposite, pleasure and joy are not, on the very same spectrum. So when you have people that, they're in their own path, they're in their own journey, they're in their own learning, when you have people that are on that path of pleasure, and maybe doing things that people feel are more hedonistic, do you feel like it takes a state of desperation? Like, does somebody need to be having a near-death experience for them to finally like have that kind of perspective, or to turn around in that direction?
Yeah, I think people do it from perhaps two areas, uh, two states. Some people do things from a place of like just selfishness and self-serving mentalities, which is ultimately not their fault. We live in a world that is very self-serving. But I also feel the other is the the opposite, which is just a self-loathing or a lacking of self-love. And I
Mm,
feel in the West we haven't really been shown how to love ourselves in a non-selfish, non-self-serving way, because often people confuse self-love with this being a selfish person. Like, I'm just going to do this me time, and I'm going to um pretty much chuck everyone else under the bus for my own well-being, and put that under the veil of I'm a self-loving, giving person. And this is what ultimately I think you might call spiritual bypassing, or whatever the term may be. But I feel that people get stuck in one or the other. For me, it was stuck in a level of not loving myself. And every time I fasted or went into fruit or raw foods, emotions would come up
mm,
very quickly of, you can't do this, you will fail, how
mm.
can you do this, you should go and eat that stuff, you should go and consume that music, you should go watch pornography, whatever it may be. That these things come up that are trying to erode you. And 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 then the other is that you're just pleasure seeking continually, like what you were saying, where you're just in this fun, like whatever, physically oriented, materialistic mindset. And I think for those people it probably would take something serious to happen to them for them to wake out of it. You hear about these stories, a lot of people going down those roads, and then they get in a car crash, or they overdose on something, or whatever happens, and that, like, or someone, a family member dies, and that flips them back in. I find it interesting. Anyone listening, I don't know if it's just me, but every time you get sick or have like a deep detoxification, all the other things that are trivial and really unimportant just vanish. And the
Yeah.
things that matter are very clear. There's very few things. It's like family, people you love, nature. None of those other things matter anymore. So right there, I think, is a key to what actually matters.
Right.
And all the other things are just like fluff. It's like baggage. And and I think it does take uh, a deeper love for, like, philosophy, like a love for truth, a love for wisdom. Really, that I've always had that. I've always said I want to know the way, and I'll happily reconstruct my entire reality, and not because of a bias, not because, oh well, this, I've got a study that says this, or so and so said this. And I feel people aren't concreted in themselves enough, and really feel that at a deep level. They may intellectualize in something, so they're always spinning and swinging.
Mm.
But I'm just steady on the road. And so when these people that I know that do get lost down these other paths, I don't judge them. I see that I've done that myself,
Mm.
and I see that perhaps as well going through levels of suffering would get them to uh, restructure their choices. And I I think because of the suffering I've been through and people I know that have gone through levels of suffering, it humbles you to a great deal. I think people that may see other people that have suffered, they don't really know what it's like. So until you have actually personally experienced it, then you know what someone else could experience. And because you are a loving person, you don't want other people to suffer unnecessarily.
Right.
So,
Right.
mm,
Very good point. Very great point, Brother Jake. Speaking of suffering, someone once talked about how they said that when we have intense anger or when we hold, when we harbor that anger in our heart or like a grudge for someone else,
mm,
it's almost like drinking poison and waiting for someone else to die, you know?
wow.
That it doesn't hurt the other person,
Yeah.
but it's like eating you up inside, you know?
Yeah.
So when it comes to anger, because I definitely battled with and dealt with a lot of anger in my life as well. How were you able to finally, overcome the intense anger? Because I remember you saying that even at one point it got so bad that you almost really, I mean, did something very deadly, to your brother or your sibling,
Yeah.
you said.
Mm.
So how did you finally overcome that beast?
Yeah. So as as a younger as a younger child when that happened, um, it was definitely a lot of the emotional work that my mum did helped a great deal. So by the time I got into late primary school and high school, I wasn't as aggressive.
Mm,
And then as I started to become a teenager and a young man, I just started to notice that, like, even though I was angry, I was always very sensitive.
mhm,
So it wouldn't take much for me to cry or someone to like hurt me or something. If and there were levels of like self-worth in relation to that are still affecting me to this day in some way, shape, or form. Um, and I can see what they are, and it's like I'm working on them, and I know what I'm doing, and it's some of these emotional wounds are deep,
mm,
but really, what eventually what the anger turned into was
mm,
suppression. So I I I was no longer angry, but I was channeling that pain through food and pornography, which I think a lot of people do. And that pretty much took over my young adult life from the ages of like 13 to like 21, like
mhm,
21 sort of range. And one day I woke up and I said, nothing is going to change. I think I read part of Russell Brand's recovery book. I didn't finish it. I just read a few pages, and there was a line that said, you got to at first acknowledge the fact that you are powerless to what is taking control over you.
mm,
So whether it be food, drugs, it's for addiction and recovery. And
mhm,
he's like, you then have to surrender to something new that gives you a solution.
mm.
And that may be, he recommended a 12-step program. But for me, I went to a 10-day silent meditation retreat.
Nice.
And I was
Vipassana. Vipassana.
Vipassana. Yeah.
Awesome.
And
Awesome.
yeah, exactly.
Wow. I feel like we're brothers even more now. We're even more brothers now because
Oh, yeah.
oh man. Keep
Oh,
going.
mate.
Keep going.
Vipassana, I really feel for those that do the Vipassana and completely miss it, because there are many people on there that you see weren't doing the Vipassana. They were just thinking the whole time. And even the teacher said to me, he's like, afterwards, he said, man, he said, I can see you've gotten so much out of this. And I said, mate, day three, I packed my bags and I was ready to leave. Day three, I was done. I said, this is not for me. This is stupid. I was like angry. This is ridiculous. There was no technology, no cell phones, nothing, as you know,
Right.
all like Hare Krishna sort of vegan, vegetarian food. And I was already used to that kind of food. I'd already been vegan for, you know, many years prior anyway. So that wasn't hard for me, but the sitting down and just the watching of things come up, I'd never observed things.
Mm,
I'd always reacted.
mm,
So anger is a reaction.
right.
Going to food is a reaction when you're feeling miserable. Going to gaming or pornography or whatever when you're feeling down, when
Mm,
you're feeling low, you're avoiding looking at that.
mhm,
And after the 10 days, it was almost like I felt like a different person. That
Mm-hmm.
those feelings were no longer there.
Right.
Those None of that existed anymore. There was a part of me that was healed, and looking back now, it's been like 6 years since I did that. I was thinking, geez, that the thought of being in that way
Mm-hmm.
just feels so foreign to
Wow.
me. And really, I encourage those. If you don't know what a Vipassana course is, it's
Mm-hmm.
free. You can donate after.
Right.
And just give yourself to it all. There were some days I really, really struggled,
Mm-hmm.
and every time we had the discourses from Gwenka in the evening,
Mm-hmm.
he would remind us, just give yourself these 10
Yeah.
days. If just don't put your other practice into it, don't put something else into it. Just do what we instruct,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll see why that is so.
Yeah.
And yeah, what you experience is, yeah, you can't talk about it. There's nothing to talk about.
Oh my gosh. You just, oh man, so many memories just come down, memory lane when you're just recalling that. And yeah, we had those discourses as well from Goenka every
They're
night.
all the same. They're
And
brilliant.
day
Mm.
three for me as well. Day three, I was like, I knew I wasn't able to leave because, we were in the snowy mountains and we had
Well,
driven out there and I wasn't the driver. So I went with my friends, a group of 5 friends. So I had no ride, there was no ride to leave. So there was no
mm.
leaving, I was in it. And by day three, same as you, brother, I was like, okay, I'm here. There's
Mm.
no way out there, we got to go through it to get to it.
Hmm.
So when Goenka would say every night, the third day is over. You
That got
have
me, man.
7 more days to work
Yeah.
ardently, diligently, diligently. Like he's just
Yeah.
telling us this is gonna be a work. You're gonna
Mm.
put in some work here, but it, really work on yourself during this time, this like mental surgery where you are the operator and the patient.
Hmm.
You're the one on the table and you're the one with the scalpel. You're the one
Hmm.
going in and making the incision. And you're also the one in
Mm.
meditation. So man, brother, just tremendous respect for you going through that. And even though it's only 10 days, those 10 days are like long,
Hmm.
it's like a stretch, you're not talking, you're not writing, there's no distractions, there's nothing to take you away from yourself, it's just me, myself, and I just there.
Mm.
And yeah, you
Yeah,
become a lot more aware for sure, for sure.
for sure. And I remember as well, I think it was on days 3 to 5, because I think Vipassana starts day 4.
Mhm.
And you're doing Anapana, I think, for the first few.
And then the
And I
aditana,
would,
yeah. Mhm.
yeah, and I remember seeing people overeating. And I remember Gwenka saying, only have like 3/4 of your plate full and don't have seconds. And people were full and because they were emotionally eating. And of course they wouldn't be aware of that at that time. But I was very aware of that. And there were times I just wanted to just stuff my face. And I was there saying to myself, that's not going to change anything.
Right,
You've been here before.
right.
It's guaranteed to make you feel the exact same way.
Mm,
It's like doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting the outcome to be different. It will always be the same. And it's like that thing that I was saying before is when you do something from a place of ignorance, you don't really suffer. Once you know and you go back, you suffer immensely. So
yeah,
you already know because you've been there countless times before.
exactly.
Um, and I often wonder what doing what doing a Vipassana would be like in a desert where there's not really much around, or being like a raw food Vipassana for people that have already gotten a really light diet. A lot of people struggle just on the vegetarian vegan food because they're coming from a Western
Hmm.
diet. They struggle just eating that alone, and they have detoxification symptoms from just eating plants.
Hmm.
And whilst doing the meditation, which, as you said, is arduous. But I think this is something Gwenka was saying, and Dan McDonald has spoken on this before, is he's like, it is work,
Hmm.
but it's rewarding. It's rewarding.
It is.
No one feels satisfied by doing something easy that's given to them.
Hmm.
You don't have that sense. It's like you clean your car, you feel satisfied. You go and clean an area of the house. That's why in these temples around the world, they do the monotonous jobs,
Yeah,
the refilling of the water, the sweeping of the deck, whatever it may be, and you get this inner fulfillment that fills
right.
you.
Right.
And that was the first time ever that I'd actually finished something. Did that
Mm,
Vipassana course. I'd actually fully finished something in my life. Actually started and finished it.
awesome, man. Awesome. Just like
Mm.
congratulations on that for sure. Because
Fireworks.
you're right, brother Jake. I've never heard an epic story after an easy journey. You know, like
Mm.
after something easy, something was easy. You never hear like a epic testimony, an epic story when something has gone so smooth and so easy. It's just nice. And we had a question down here. Actually, for me, it's interesting. I don't usually get questions like this during talks like this, but Jessica's asking me, didn't you do this fasted? So yeah, she remembers when I talked about doing Vipassana before. And I
Mm.
recall during the welcoming procedure, they have guidelines, and they show you the guidelines. And when I was reading through it, brother, I saw, oh, wait, whoa, no fasting,
Yeah.
you know? So fasting was prohibited. So I had to be sneaky about it. I had to like remove my silverware and, do things to like put my silverware in the tray, put things in the tray,
Wow.
and then they would replace it afterwards and assume that I was eating. But all I had during that 10 days was the Bengal spice tea and the lemon water that they were
Yeah.
serving for they had the second students, the students that were
The old
doing it
students.
again. Yeah,
Yeah.
those students, they were drinking the lemon water. So I was just having that and the Bengal spice tea the whole time. So it
Wow.
definitely, it would have been because at that point I had already gone so long without food that it would have been detrimental for me to start eating
Mm.
versus my five friends that I was with. They weren't fasting like that, so it would have been hard for them to stop eating.
Mm.
It would have been harder for me to start eating. I don't think I would have gone
Mm.
into it. Yeah.
Mm.
So it was kind of like reversed, but it definitely was an experience that was unforgettable. Like you said, for the folks that are out there listening, just try it, and it's donated. Like you said, that's one of the tremendous things about it that I find so beautiful
Mm.
is after the experience they were like, somebody already paid for you, you know
Mm.
like your spot, your seat here, it's already been paid for. Somebody already made
Mm.
a donation and a contribution just for your sit, for you to be here. And I just found
Mm.
that awesome,
Mm.
really heartwarming
Mm.
to know that.
Yeah, it was, and it is like there's one up here, the one I did in the Sunshine
Hmm.
Coast. They nearly got it removed because of this expansion, this freeway expansion, and actually Gwenka came to Australia and chose that location with the teacher that I was with for that course,
Awesome.
and they fought so much when Gwenka's passed now, but um when they were fighting a lot for it, and they've kept it, which is great. So that location that Gwenka chose himself is still there, and it's a beautiful location, man. And yeah, I think if anyone, you can always talk to it, even though you're not speaking there. It's a silent meditation. You can speak to the teachers if you are struggling. I did do that
Right.
once when I was going to leave.
Mm.
Um, they said, "Don't leave yet to come speak to the teacher." And then he said, "Do you generally run away from things in your life?" And I said, "Yep." And he said, "You probably won't come back,
Mm.
and at least for a very long time." And he said, "You're not going to feel
Mm.
good." He said, "You're at a point now where you can make that decision." And we had a conversation, and after the conversation, I felt so good about staying. And I just, by the last day, I wanted it to keep
Yeah.
going. I was like, "Why are we stopping?"
Yeah, I remember too, like when they lifted the noble silence, when
Mm,
everybody was able to talk again, we all just started laughing and just, everybody was just like just there was so much, it was like a family, like a big family. And
mm,
you had been there with somebody in the dormitory in the residence hall. I was sleeping next to this guy for the full 10 days that we never talked to each other because we couldn't talk. So
yeah.
by the end, even we had been in silence together for so long that we felt like we knew each other to a certain degree.
Hmm.
We had gotten so familiar just in silence. So it shows that, there are things that, like they say, silence is golden.
Mm,
Some things speak louder than words. Your energy can speak louder than words. So,
way.
brother Jake, you actually illuminated something to me that I have not found this connection in so long, but this was mind blowing. What you said, you drew a correlation for me that it was just out of nowhere. You said that you it wasn't that you got rid of your anger immediately. You said you suppressed your anger, and better yet, you channeled your anger into distractions like food, pornography, video games. These were the same things that I channeled my anger through. I didn't even know that I was doing that.
Yeah,
You
neither.
know, these suppressed emotions
Mm,
that I wasn't expressing, I was stressing and suppressing all the
mm.
time. It was depressing,
Yeah,
you
very.
know? So,
Mm,
can you talk about that? Because for one thing, you know, for the masculine out there, for men who deal with, you know, pornography addiction, like
yeah.
myself, I went through that for many years before finally being rid of it, you know, years
Mm.
ago. Like that is something that some people feel they will never let go,
Oh, yeah.
you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt that many times where you get rid of it, it's all out of your life,
Mhm.
and then something happens, bam, it's back, and then
Right.
it grabs a hold of you like never letting go. And yeah, this is a huge issue in this day and age that it's so easy to come by,
Mhm.
um, and it's so like normalized as well, like it's normal and it's accepted, which is a real shame because it shouldn't be,
Mhm.
for a few reasons. But when I got rid of it, after my intention going into the Vipassana course, I just wanted to be free from the suffering that I experience on a daily basis,
Right.
and that was a huge part of it, and
Mhm.
that was gone. And what was interesting is the next time I played a video game with friends, I didn't have that same feeling because I was just playing Mario Kart or whatever.
Mhm.
I think it was Mario Kart or FIFA or something like that. And it was just a bit of casual fun, but I wasn't there distracting myself, getting out of this, trying to get away from myself, which is actually an impossible thing.
Mhm.
You can't get away from yourself. You're just pulling yourself away. So when you do come back, it's scary. Being in yourself is scary.
Mhm.
And, and I think the more that we eat lighter foods, that we spend time alone, we're becoming more okay with ourselves. And then therefore we actually accept ourselves for who we are. Because really it's an ultimate form of self-rejection,
Mhm.
is these things: drugs, partying, sleeping around with people, pornography. These are deep levels of self-rejection. And I'm speaking from experience. People often say, "How dare you say that?" And it's like, well, I've experienced this. I've experienced this firsthand. There are drug addicts, people that are porn
Mhm.
addicts. Like Russell Brand was a good example of that at a time, and many outspoken people about this. But something that really helped me, spread the message as well, is I did a lot of animal activism,
Mhm.
and throughout doing animal activism, I saw that it's not just about stopping the suffering of animals, or it's actually it's stopping the exploitation and suffering of innocence.
Mhm.
And and a good question you can ask yourself is, in these videos that you're watching, men and women watch, is a lot of women watch pornography as well now. It's I used this the statistics are much higher now, which shows the amount of sadness we have in our world. And it's is that, would you want that girl in that video to be your daughter? Would you be okay with that?
Wow.
And also to be also aware as well that every time you click on a site, you're actually culpable. The word culpability means you are responsible for spreading the outreach of that site. So that site can now reach a child. A lot of children watch pornography.
Mhm.
Children can now be exposed from the ages of 4. So you're actually saying that that's okay. So there were deep fasting that I did, and I had these sparks of wanting to go back to these websites,
Mhm.
these like little like deep, and I knew they were like almost like ash residue or little inklings of what used to be,
Mhm.
and I just reminded myself of my own suffering is not I cannot justify myself to go to that site knowing that a child will click on that site because of me,
Wow.
and I don't want to corrupt an innocent being. I don't eat animals. I don't abuse
Mhm.
animals, and I'm not going to spread the message of the site that I ultimately disagree with.
Wow.
Not to mention women are trafficked in these. A lot of the videos aren't even consensual. That's why they have different
Mm-hmm.
names for the women in these videos. Is they use different names so they can own the information. There's a whole lot of darkness that goes into that. And if anyone wants to watch a movie on child trafficking, which ultimately leads to the porn industry, is a movie called Sound of
Mm-hmm.
Freedom, which you may have already seen or heard of. But yeah, that was really it for me. And really, I think asking yourself those questions, writing those things down, getting clear. Like, I don't want this anymore. Like,
Right.
writing down, I don't want to be like this anymore. I want this. And if something comes up, what can I do? Or what can I know? Like, when you know that a child could access this, or when you know that by buying that thing is going to harm an animal or a child or someone in some way directly harm them,
Right.
that I'm not going to, I'm going to sit with I'm going to do, I'll find something else if I have to. I'm just going to sit with it, because ultimately there is no alternative. You have to sit with it.
Mm-hmm.
And something weird happens, like in Vipassana. It becomes very intense, that feeling. And then all of a sudden, poof, it's gone.
Yeah.
It's almost like it was never there.
Yeah.
And that is it. Like Alan Watts' words, it's like waves in the water. They come and they go, they come and they go. But when we cling to them, we are holding endlessly. But if we let go, they're gone, and it's as if they were never there to begin with.
Very great point. Very great point, brother. You know, these are definitely just thank you for your testimony. Like, thank you for just being vulnerable to share that because it's powerful. You know, both sexes, you know, both genders need to hear this. Like you said, it's on the rise. You know, the statistics are on the rise for people
Mm,
that are consuming the content that you
mm,
just through the content consumption, it contributes to the continuous, you know, just calamity of people just I mean, like you said, just all the darkness. And
mm,
you also mentioned that it's circling back to when you said, once you know, you can't unknow once you know.
mm.
You know, once you know now, it's on your conscience, it's on your mind, it's on your
Yep,
heart, it's on your
yep.
spirit. You
You
know,
wear it.
you definitely do.
Mm,
And you know, it's hard to do something once you're no longer ignorant of the choices you're making, you know, once you're no longer ignorant of the steps that you're taking, you know that this is going to lead somewhere. Like this is going to have consequences on the back end, you know, an effect, a cause and effect that's going to happen maybe to
mm,
somebody else, you know, that
mm-hmm.
and just being tied to that, like having
Yeah,
yourself being tied to something that is going to lead somebody else down a dark path,
yeah,
you know,
yep.
it weighs heavy. It weighs
Oh
heavy.
yeah,
So thank you for
yeah.
illustrating that point of that it's not about you. It's not all about you. It's
Mm,
also about everybody, you know, the whole ecosystem and just getting out of the ecosystem, getting back to the ecosystem. Like how can we protect, you know, the world as a whole and what does it reflect in the
mm,
world as a whole?
mm,
So, brother, you know, the last thing that I wanted to ask you, brother, was just the tremendous work that you've done on yourself and going to these great lengths, going to these great depths that few people are willing to go. You know, they say that only one who is willing to risk going too far can find out how far one can go.
mm,
So, when it comes to the 21-day juice feast, you did a 21-day where you went through it and you see, you know, the before and after of you
mm.
going through 21 days on liquids only, on fruit juice only. What was that like? And what was the initial inspiration and what got you through that? Yeah.
Yeah. I also want to add, there's another quote very similar that I got from the guy that I followed for the juice fast.
Mm-hmm.
Is only those who go where few have gone will see what few have seen.
Mm.
I believe that
Yes.
was a Buddha quote. It was Buddha or Socrates. I forget, but
Powerful.
yeah, and it's essentially what you said. But I love these. I love these things. Always, you're always like yes, and it's so true. And yeah, the 21-day juice fast. I'd been wanting to do that for a while.
Okay.
Um, I'd been I I was following. You may know of John Rose.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I followed his method.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just seeing his experience, the fact that he's like Arnold Ehret,
Mm.
he's done the work on
Right.
himself. he's experienced it. He's like not just intellectualizing it,
Right.
he's experienced it. Like Dr. Morse discovered kidney filtration by living in a van when he was 21 and ate oranges for 6 months.
Mm.
And that's all he did. He experienced it and he became very connected with everything around him in the orchards and and so like there's been a part of me that knew that I needed to experience this and I knew I could do it. I
Mm.
just knew that there may be ups and downs. And as I began starting on it, I'd always been doing calisthenics and some form of exercise, but I definitely could see that my tissues still had like waste in them.
Mm.
But ultimately, it was for an emotional reason,
Mm.
emotional clarity reason.
Okay.
And really, the first thing that happened was just a very clear mind, almost like a glass
Mm.
lake, very even energy. And I was rock climbing at the time, and I beat two personal records on day 4 and 5. And my strength went up, and I put on muscle. And I was watching one of John Rose's videos, and he's like, "Yeah, you put on muscle all the time on a solid food vacation on a juice feast,
Mm-hmm.
because you're still getting all the everything you need. You're just giving your digestive system a break." And every single day throughout that 21 days, I had a solid bowel movement, which I knew was going to happen. But I'm thinking I'm already a pretty lean guy. What can it really be like? And yep, I saw things with mold, sulfur, crazy, scary stuff. Nothing. Thank God I grew up on a relatively okay diet.
Mm.
Okay, actually, is an understatement. Far better than the vast majority of people in the
Mm.
West. So I know my system isn't as clogged up. I would have like organic food, but like organic bread
Mm.
and still things that aren't good for you, but they weren't the generic Wonder White bread and margarine and all that kind of junk. And and so towards the end of it, it was really more the relationship that I was in that really stopped me from at the time that stopped me from proceeding. My girlfriend at the time wasn't was her and she wasn't really encouraging of what I was doing, and she seemed very
Oh.
jealous. So I sort of stopped because of going down uh, some emotional blockages that weren't teeing up because she didn't feel she could do it. She was almost envious of me, and that was really coming off. And it was only later that we spoke about it. And but all in all, man, I've never felt so much energy. And now going into a grape diet, eating grapes. I've also done 12 days. I did 12 days eating grapes before,
Uh,
12 or 14 days grape juicing. I've always felt amazing on these things. And now with the new grape season here in Australia, it's the first time I'm ever doing
wow.
organic grapes because I found a supply that's a pretty good price.
Awesome.
And yeah, like I'm feeling amazing so far. And I'm just going to keep going. I'm
Beautiful.
just going to keep going with it and just do another feat for myself because it's been a while. I haven't done any fasting actually since that 21-day juice fast.
Okay.
Um, and I have done like intermittent fasting, like I already don't really eat breakfast
Mm.
anyway. And I feel that yeah, you start to get your there's a book I think by Gabriel Cousens called Spiritual Nutrition.
Mm.
And it's like you start to get your energy elsewhere from playing guitar, playing flute, having a conversation with someone like
This is
this.
this is what we're
You know what I
talking about.
mean?
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's not just from the food. And um yeah, you can't, as you said, you have to experience it.
Right.
Only those who go where few have gone will see what few have seen, and that's the only way. You got to go there. You can't talk about it. You got to go there.
Spiritual nutrition, what you said is so on point, brother. I wonder what this world would be like if more people knew that, that you can get your energy, your nourishment, and your nutrition from other sources. What you just said. You said playing the guitar, having a conversation, being in nature, breathing, being
Mm.
in sunlight, like all these things can give us, so much more than we realize. And it's interesting because I was really curious when you were talking about the relationship dynamic, because I've also seen very interesting relationship dynamics on this journey in particular when it comes to, just not having solid food. What was the
Mm.
jealousy? Like, what was the envy? What was the jealousy? What did you figure out? Like, what was that she had?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a relationship that lasted nearly 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a big, it finished 4 months ago, and it was one of the hardest things for me, because what I had realized was that I had so much low self-worth that I had to be like, being in a relationship with someone that ultimately didn't actually respect me. I felt I deserved that, and I didn't see that. So it was a year or so prior to this breakup where I was still not seeing clearly what was happening,
Mm-hmm.
even though I could feel it in my being that this person actually isn't supporting me.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't leave. I still stayed. And then, so now that I'm out of that, it's like, oh my God, I feel like the veil is lifted, and it's been a great lesson. I'm super grateful for it, and I wish her well, and have a great life, and hope you have joy and in contentment. But there was always a level of comparison, I feel, and
Mm-hmm.
we ultimately just weren't like, this wasn't that feeling of camaraderie or support of like, yeah, you know what, like, I might not want to do that, but you can, and I'm gonna pick you up. I'm not gonna pull you down. And I feel that I've seen, actually, with clients of mine. I had a client who had type 1 diabetes. I got him onto a fruit and herb protocol. He went to the lowest amount of insulin in 4 weeks than he'd ever been on in his life. And he was doing so well. And I said, mate, your type 1 will be gone in no time. You're doing really well. You've got great genetics. Let's keep going. And his wife said, I need to see studies on this. And I said, well, there is no studies on this yet, because there's no money in this. We have testimonials, we have group pages. You can ring Dr. Morse's clinic, but he ultimately got crushed, and he couldn't. He got emotionally crushed, and he said, "I can't do this if I don't have my wife's support." So he stopped, and he went back, and he still has type 1 diabetes. And that's an extreme example of the people you're around. Be careful, because deviant people can be very subtle to you, but to others they can be obvious. When like a family member notices, they're like, hey, why are you with that person, or why are you hanging out with that person? They don't appreciate you.
Yeah.
They're talking you down, or they're crushing you. They change who you
Mm.
are. When you're not around them, you're a different person. You're you. And but when you're in it, you don't want to see it. At least I didn't. And that was a big lesson for me. And I'm thankful it was a 5-year lesson and not a 10-year lesson. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
mine was a 10-year lesson. Yeah, mine was a
yeah.
decade. That was a decade lesson for me, for sure.
But
Yeah,
how amazing. It's like, have you read the book The
yeah,
Alchemist?
yeah.
Yeah.
I have it right over
It's
here.
yeah, I've read that book multiple times a year. It's,
Mm.
thank God it was 10 years and not 20 years. Or
Yeah,
thank God it was 20 years and not 40 years.
yeah.
It's all, and I say this to clients as well. There's nothing happening against you.
Mm.
Even if it feels like it is the worst thing, it is actually happening for you. You just haven't seen how that is happening for you yet. And
Hmm.
you will come to see it. This too shall pass, and you will see it.
I agree. I agree. This too shall pass. This is a great point. You've made so many great points, during this conversation about, I mean, just to have the resilience, and just to realize your brilliance, to understand what really matters,
Mm.
at the end of the day, like what really matters. And it's like they say, like a healthy person has 1,000 wishes or 1,000 dreams, but when you're sick, all you have is one. You know,
Mm.
you just
Mm.
have one. It just all comes down to that one. And when you realize, you just bring it back to that one, it's like, what are we really, missing out on? What are we really here for? What's really important? What's the biggest priority? So
Mm.
during that 21-day juice feast, when you were still putting on muscle, what were you doing? Calisthenics? Were you doing just a lot of like body build? Like, what were you doing with your body to continue putting on muscle? Because you said you broke two of your personal best records, even
Mm.
on like day 4 and 5. You were breaking records with no solid food.
Yeah. Rock climbing. I was doing mostly rock climbing at a gym, and I was climbing. It's the grades are color coded,
Mm-hmm.
and I was sort of climbing the intermediate, and then I climbed in advanced, which is like, I was two below the hardest you
Mm-hmm.
could do, and which is like professional level. So I was three below professional level climbing, whereas before I was 4 or 5 levels below,
Okay.
and that was all just by just all through that. And then also doing that, I had so much energy. I'd rock climb for like 3 hours. I'd get home, make more juice, and then I'd run to the park and do a workout with my gymnastic rings. And then I still had energy. And people don't realize, and I think it's an important factor is you actually need a lot less. And it's, you don't need much. And I say to people, like I wrote a free ebook, which you can get on my page, and there's a part there on how much to eat. And I don't really like giving guidelines.
Right.
And I ultimately say, don't worry about calories, eat till you're full, but ultimately you're going to actually want to eat before fullness if you want more energy. And also you'll start to notice that your desire for food will come down, come down, come down, and you will want less and less. And I'm heavier than I've ever been in my life. I'm 5'8". I used to be about 57 kilograms, which is about 135 to 137 pounds, I believe. I was quite light. Now I sit around 65 kilograms, which is about 145 pounds. And all of that is pretty much from eating fruit and eating essentially a calorically deficient diet, a deficient diet, because it's the energy of the food. And it's the fact that this juice fast was giving me exactly what I needed in the form of energy, which is essentially chemistry, which is magnetism, which ultimately is consciousness at the end of the day. And that's really what is being fed to you. And that's why consciousness can come through a musical instrument, a conversation with another conscious being. That's why it ultimately comes from the same thing. So you are going to get nourishment from that. You're going to get, like just the other day, 2 days ago, my first day on the grapes, I found out that the dream guitar that I've wanted for over 15 years was on sale. And it's like a handmade guitar. And I'm like, I'm going to drive 6 hours to get it. So I drove 6 hours that day and I didn't eat much. And I got home and I wasn't hungry. I just wanted to play the instrument. I was just like, I just want to feel this instrument. It was beautiful. I knew I wasn't going to buy it, but I had this feeling it was going to be the one. And it was. And I thought, what a way to start this grape journey is I have this beautiful instrument to play throughout this journey. Whereas before I was still playing a beautiful guitar, but I've had that since grade 3. I've had that for 20 years. It's a beginner, it's like, it felt so right. And like it's, what are you investing in? Are you investing in your health? It comes in multiple forms, in forms of playing a flute. I play multiple flutes, listening to nature, investing in just going into a waterfall, having conversations like this that fill you up. It's just, yeah, man, I could go on and on.
Me too. Me too, bro. Like, man, this is just true. I love this. I love this, man. Like, just hearing just so many confirmations and affirmations, and just to have the sensation that less could be more, like less is more. We can explore, there's a
Oh,
lot more in
man.
store
Oh yeah.
when less is more.
I love it.
Yeah.
Man, I love it. It's like, people say to me, oh, just live a little. It's a very common expression here.
Mhm.
And it's like, I don't want to live a little, actually. I want to live a lot.
Come
And
on.
by me not doing those things, I'm actually living to my fullest. And when you're doing those things, you're actually restricting yourself, and you aren't actually, people think you're restricting by fasting or restricting by not partaking in what other people are doing, but you aren't. You're actually giving yourself the full expression of freedom. And it shows that respect you have for yourself is so high that you're not willing to get rid of that for something that ultimately they want you to do, because they're uncomfortable if you don't do it with them, because really they're not comfortable doing it themselves. And that that's a shame. But it's, I just saw a quick question there from, I think it was it Jessica. She asked what my regime is. I'll be sharing something soon, but ultimately what I do is calisthenics. I literally do gymnastic rings, chin-ups, pull-ups, push-ups, or I run around on the beach. That's pretty much it.
Awesome.
That's all I do.
Yeah.
Nothing crazy, but I will share some more because I've recently put on a lot of lean muscle on coming up to the grape diet. I've pretty much been, since the breakup 4 months ago, I've been probably 95% fruit, and the rest has been salad. And the occasional time I've had a down where I've like dipped into something that hasn't served me. And I'm like, this new year, I made a promise to myself, I'm going to eat grapes for as long as I can, and I'm going to commit myself to that. I'm not going to let this grape season pass me by like I did the previous year, and I'm going to fully walk the path 100% from here on out. I don't want to be 95%. I want to be living this through and through for my own well-being
Wow.
and for my own sanity, really, and my own growth at the end of the day.
Yeah. Wow, brother. Just awesome. Just to have that fortitude and just to tell yourself in that way to be able to stick it out and to say, you know what? It's in season, It's my
Yeah.
season, all the more reason, It's my season. So
Oh, love
season,
it.
brother. It's your season, it's your time, and it's divine.
Mm,
It's divine, brother.
mm.
So thank you, man. Thank you for coming on here. Thank you for speaking a word. They're already saying that they're gonna read your book. They
Yeah,
say
that's brilliant.
definitely reading this after the live. She said it looks good.
Yeah,
And man,
it's
just
free. It's got recipes. It's got a bit about me, why I got into being a practitioner of Dr. Morse,
mhm,
recipes, what to do in social environments, what to do if you do eat something that doesn't serve you. Like
right.
I combine Dr. Morse and Arnold Ehret's approach when
Mhm,
it comes to what I do, and the proof is in the pudding. The testimonials are
right.
there. I've got more coming out, some really cool ones actually, and people at this community that I'm staying at, just friends that I've helped. There's one gentleman, he's like 63. He's just jumped in like there's no tomorrow,
Mhm,
and he hasn't had a solid night's sleep in like
mhm,
45 years, and just a
mhm.
week eating what nature gives, fruit and herbs. He now sleeps solidly after a week.
Yeah,
Um,
just like that.
and he's like, how calm, yeah, and how calm he feels. There's so much more, but it's yeah,
Yeah.
sharing this kind of thing, man. I'm keen to do another one.
Oh
Like, there's
yeah. Oh
so much
yeah,
to go
for
over,
sure.
and I so
Just,
appreciate you, man.
just let people know real quick before you go. Like, I know the book is free, but if you do have services and offerings for them to
Mm,
get in touch or get in tune with you and dive a little bit deeper, where should they go? What's the best place they should go to receive that?
sure, yeah, they should go to my page. They can message me here on Instagram, but also to rawgenerate.com,
Okay.
and that's my website. That's where you can book. I always do a free call. Get on a free call with
Yeah.
me. I'll chat with you, and but you can also make bookings there as well. And I'm just like Dr. Morse. I make my consults really affordable. I give everything in the main consults, but if they want coaching, you can get coaching because there are some people that need that support.
Mhm.
And I wish I had that really at the end of the day. But if you just want to I do because I'm a lymphatic iridologist, so you can see the genetics in the eyes, see everything in the eyes, and then go over your whole health thing, health form, make a herbal protocol for you, and then maybe tune the diet differently. If you're someone that's obese, probably not the best idea to go all fruit straight away.
Mhm.
Do some different things, moving into that to get yourself well as soon as possible, as safely as
Mhm.
possible, and with as much ease as possible. And I also have a free community that people can join as well, a community chat after working with me where we have uh, it's on Telegram. It's essentially a place where if I'll put it this way, if you're genuinely someone that's not going to spam
Yeah.
and you're
Yeah.
genuinely interested and you live this way, you can
Okay.
join. I'm fine with that.
Cool.
But I've had people that join that just start doing weird things. I just have to kick them out. So if you're genuinely interested, message me. I'll add you to my private community chat. It's a great space over there. And if you're someone that lives this way, you have this experience, come over. It's all free. It's all fun. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome, man. So raw generate and then rawgenerate.com.
Hmm.
Got it.
Yeah.
Beautiful, brother. Well, have an amazing rest of your time, brother. An amazing rest of your day. I know it's in the rising, it's morning time there, in Australia. So it's my evening. I'm gonna take it, we're gonna rest here. But thank you so much. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Much love, brother.
Much
Bye for
love.
now.
Much
Yeah.
love.
Bye.